Thought experiment for the day. Did Ronald Reagan's wine room help him win the election for US president? I think he actually did. I think there is a sort of bizarre connection. We're talking about wine rooms. Hello to Sorrels, our friends, who help us put this on. You should go and visit them. The best place to go for a good wine room. Now, they didn't make Ronald Reagan's wine room because they weren't around. Ronald Reagan had a wine room. It was made by General Electric, state of the art. We mentioned this once before. Beautifully done, temperature controlled, everything immaculate. But he had it because he presented a thing called General Electric Theatre, which is a kind of anthology series that went out on American TV. But there's a bizarre connection. They fitted it because he was a really generous host and he would do lots of other stuff for them. I think he was a part owner in the series. But he toured America and claimed that I think it was almost 200 visits where he talked about General Electric Theatre to like small groups, moose lodges and masons and rotaries and little community clubs. He really had spoken to 250,000 Americans in little small groups. And he honed his kind of rhetorical skills and he became a great communicator. And so he earned his wine room off doing all of those and eventually goes and becomes this amazing orator who becomes president of the United States. It's sort of a connection in a weird way. We have loads of connections. So we're going to talk quite a bit about temperature today. Not entirely about American politics, although it's best to avoid it. You know what? We should talk about politics, but not around drink. That is my general rule around these things because it all goes horribly wrong. So, going from Reagan back, we're going to be like Nixon, going to meet Chairman Mao. Because the first one we got today is from China. You weren't expecting that, were you? First wine. So what I've got actually is, today's all about chilling reds, although I've cheated with the first one. But we're talking about chilling reds because that's one of the reasons why wine coolers are really useful, because having reds slightly cooler makes a big difference to them. But this first one, I had to go and throw this in. So what we got, this is called Château Changyu-Moser 15 Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc de Noir. Now the reason I put this in, this is made from Cabernet Sauvignon, red grape, and yet it's made as a white. Well, this is a rosé white. It's made by my friend Lens Moser. Hello, Lens. How nice. Lens, we're going to have to get some sort of Zoom thing on because you're amazing to talk to. And he makes it at Château-Moser. So this is in the Helan mountain range in Ningxia in China, which is sort of outer Mongolia. It gets very cold in the winter. We have to bury the vines and dig them back up again in the spring so they don't get killed. It's so fruity. It's really fruity. Now you'll get this at Slurp Wine, VinVm wine, Selfridges. I think they're perhaps on the back vintage. This is the 18, and you can also get it through Ocado. It is $17.99, but it's super smart, kind of fun rosé. But in China, people don't plant white grapes very often because everybody likes to drink red. Historically, that is shifting, funnily enough. And the mad thing is, all the fruit is red fruit. So it's got sort of cassis and strawberry and things, cherries. The texture and the structure of the thing it's got a touch of, it's not tannin, it's got a bit more weight and firmness to it than a white grape. But it's a white wine. It's a reasonably well-structured white wine. It's got a bit of a sort of tannic tang to it. But you don't feel it. It's not tannic in any sense. It's just got a bit more heft. So it's bizarre. You try red wine, and it's actually a white one. Of course, you chill it, because structurally, you chill wines like this, and that's the key. This is my segue, my link. It's about the structure of the wine, as to whether you should chill them and how much you should chill them, much more than sort of grand rules about, oh no, reds you go and have terribly warm and whites you go and have terribly cold. Bigger whites are better off served a little bit warmer. Not necessarily warm, but you don't want them sort of bone dry, really well chilled. Big reds are often quite nice when they're a little bit warmer. We almost always serve reds generally too warm, but lighter reds are very good at time in the fridge. Now then, what should we go and try next? We're going to go and have a bit of a go at this. You know, the most extraordinary wine room I've ever come across, I haven't really seen it, but I sort of passed by, is a guy called Brian Fan, and he's the sommelier at the Hotel Roosevelt. Another American president. That was not planned actually, but we've got 3 American presidents that we've already got through. But it's in Shanghai, and there's the Roosevelt Club, which is upstairs. It's designed like a French cellar. Changyu-Moser looks like Château Changyu looks like a sort of French chateau. It's massive. It's out in the middle of Outer Mongolia, and you go to the Roosevelt cellar, the cellar for the Roosevelt Club, and it's like a French cellar, but it's way up, looking out over the Pudong River, and when you go inside, the whole thing is temperature controlled, but it has 3 separate power supplies. So it's got the city supply, the district power supply, and its own generator, sort of belt braces and another belt to make sure it doesn't ever cut out, so the wine's always kept perfect. And it has this weird concrete floor that absorbs dust. Just notice this bit dusty. You'd never get that in Brian's fans. So he's the head som there. It's all perfect. And then there's a secret door, and that's where they keep wine for royal family, diplomats, celebrities, people like that, all tucked away. Now, they're all linked to there. I actually think this lot through. The next wine that we've got down here, this is Casas del Bosque Reserva Carmenère from the Casablanca Valley in Chile. You're thinking, how's he going to make this connection? About £10, £11. Oxford Wine Company, Rannoch Scott, pulled the cork, and Ministry of Drinks. The reason I pulled this out is this is a Carmenère, and in China, it's known as Cabernet Garnished. So it was Lenz who told me about this, and it was because when it first arrived, they had Cabernet Sauvignon, which they knew about, and had Merlot, which they knew about. But then there was this other grape variety, and there was a German ampelographer, that's a good word, somebody who studies grapevines, and he didn't know what it was, but it was sort of mixed between the greener characters of Merlot, and sort of pepperiness, and then this cassis fruit that you get in Cabernet Sauvignon. So he said, oh, well, it's mixed Cabernet. In German, Cabernet Gemischt. But the guy transcribing it was Chinese, didn't really speak German, put an N instead of an M, so it became Cabernet Garnished, which is actually Carmenère in China. That's how wine names come about. When you smell it, it's that halfway house. Now, this is a lighter framed wine than Cabernet, so it actually does really well to be slightly chilled. You know, half an hour in a fridge, 15 minutes, half an hour, something like that. And it's got this slightly green crunch. When I say a crunch, I don't mean it's green in an underripe way. It's green in a sort of fresh, minty sort of way. The fruit is red currant rather than black currant. Although when you take it on the palate, actually, it starts red currant, it becomes quite black curranty. This is a ripe, juicy, quite dense black fruit style of wine. But the first hit is red curranty. And then it finishes a little bit cranberry. That just came round and tapped me on the back of the palate there. That was really lovely. That's gorgeous wine. £10, £11, gorgeous wine for the middle of the week, but put it in the fridge. Just take that little, just sort of, I don't know, it gives it a bit more briskness, and it brings out some of those fresher characteristics, which we quite like. Now, if we are going to go and talk about wine and coolers, there is a bizarre family connection here. Because well, I didn't know this, and it's much disputed, but this is when the FA Cup was valued on Antiques Roadshow. And it's the most expensive antique ever on Antiques Roadshow. And the expert, is it Brian Dickinson, he said he thought it was a wine cooler, and that it was an off-the-shelf item. The bizarre connection is that it was designed by my great-grandfather. And it was first in Bradford, and it was first won by these guys. This is Bradford City. And as it happens, the chairman of Bradford City Football Club was a cousin of mine as well. And their colours, claret and gold, are from the Fattorini coat of arms. I don't know if I can get a picture of that up. I've got one sort of over there. So I get it. It's like I've got a coat of arms. Wait there, don't move. I'm coming back. Here we go. I'm going to prove this to you. So it's slightly faded in this picture here, but down here, this is a Fattorini coat of arms. And here, those colours are meant to be claret and gold, and those are the colours of Bradford City Football Club, and that's where it comes from. Odd connection. There you go. I wasn't expecting to go there from it. Anyway, they said it was designed as a wine cooler. It turns out, my cousin said it's not at all. He's got all the archives and says, no, it was a completely, one-off purchase. It was designed by the business to be a trophy. But it's covered in vines and grapevines and leaves all over the outside of it. So it would make an excellent great wine cooler, just if you needed it. But you shouldn't. You should go and get yourself a proper, either a wine room or a cabinet. Treat yourself if you can. I mean, it's a lovely thing to go and have. Certainly don't keep them in your attic. It doesn't need to necessarily be anything enormous. Interestingly, when Reagan went to the White House, he didn't realise, or he's Michael Deaver, I think he's called. We've got a picture of him. Michael Deaver, who's his chief of staff, didn't realise that there was a cellar. Apparently it's tiny. Thomas Jefferson had a huge cellar. It's about 20,000 bottles in the West Wing, but it's now been used for the West Wing, so it's people's offices. But there is this, apparently it's about the size of a cupboard. It's this big, like this. But Michael Deaver used to keep nice wines in a little cabinet just outside the Oval Office, and they would sit and drink together. Nice little story. Right, our third wine. I'm banging on here. What do we have here? This. Oh no, I need to pour this one out. This is Devil's Corner Tasmanian Pinot Noir. This is from Henning's Rannoch Scott, again, Australian wines online, like them, Honest Grapes and Slurp. I love Tasmanian Pinots. They're absolutely gorgeous, and they need to be a little bit cooler. Earthy. It's sort of earthy strawberries that comes through. There's a real clarity of fruit to these wines. It's a beautiful, lush paradise, as New Zealand, as Tasmania. I've not been. Tasmanian Wine Marketing Board. Really love to go, just in case you're wondering. But Amelia went with the show. Absolutely loved it. Mm. Oh, that's really good. It's dry. There's a lot of savoury fruit in this, whereas the Carmenère has lots of very bright, fruity fruit, quite sweet fruit. This is more savoury fruit. It's fully ripe wine, if you like, but there's more earthiness, herbal characters. It's a little bit more tannic structure. So, although bizarrely, I'd almost chill this down a little bit more than the Carmenère, partly because of that sort of dryness. But you want to go and have this, how warm are we going to go and have this? 16, 17 degrees? Maybe 18 degrees centigrade. Sorry, we're in centigrade, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Here, we're going to be sort of cooler. I think the Blanc de Noir, Chinese, we will have this at 10, 9, 10. I don't want it to be too cold because it'll suppress the fruit. And then, where are we going to go with this? 18 degrees again, and then this probably simulates, actually, 18 degrees. That sort of area. But we don't want them the temperature of a house. And in here the other day it was 28. I had to open all the windows to let the air out. Anyway, bizarre thing about this overlooks a place called Malting Lagoon. I'm quite interested. Sort of interesting name is Malting Lagoon, and I looked up as to why. I don't know, and it turns out it's because it's a sort of where black swans go to molt. Or they molt when they're there. It's a sort of swan breeding site, which suddenly connected. We are living through Nassim Nicholas Taleb calls a black swan event, because who was the Dutch guy who went and travelled? He actually went and discovered black swans on the Swan River in mainland Australia, but nobody thought there were black swans until they went to Australia and found a black swan. And nobody imagines that you're going to be struck by a global pandemic virus until you happen to be struck by a global pandemic virus. And they're sort of events that have huge implications and in retrospect were easily predictable. You know, at some point something was going to come up which would happen. So this is a black swan event, he said. But now I'm veering off into all sorts of mad chat. Right, got a couple of questions. Angus Murray says, what was the wine that got you interested in wine? Kind of two extremes, actually, because I remember there was a bottle of wine, it was a Château 1945, and I was very young, about 7. But the following year, it was the contrast, because the following year I remember going to a wedding, my cousins, and they had Mathis Rosé, which apparently I was slightly snooty about. But it was that diversity in wine. When I then got really into wine when I was a bit older, so that was when I was like 7 or 8, by the time I was at school, I was utterly fascinated in the production of pudding wines. So there you go. Does that answer the question? Something along those lines? Bridget Kennell, I'm thinking it's Kennell because I think you're Canadian, aren't you? It's your birthday on Monday. Could I sing again? Now, is it Brigitte? I'm going to go Brigitte. It's not Bridget. Brigitte Kennell. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Brigitte Kennell. Hello. You're such a good fan as well. Happy birthday to you. And then we should do the Swedish thing where at the end you go, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. I can't remember the words to how you sing happy birthday in Swedish. Now, you said really lovely things, actually. You said you love anything to do with history of winemaking, interesting facts about wine, the region and the bottle. And you like hearing the stories about the people that make the wine. And you're very grateful for the programme. It's really sweet of you. I've not really talked very much about the people who make the wine. I can tell you a bit about Lens. Lens Moser, who makes this. We're going to have a thing with Lens. His great-grandfather, Lens is now going to tell me off, I think, who's also called Lens Moser, was the man who saved Grüne Veltliner for the world. He's also the Lens Moser after whom we name the Lens Moser training system in vineyards. It's a form of grapevine training. And Lens, I first met when he made Lawrence 5 Grüne Veltliner in Austria, which he then sold. I know his daughter very well, Sophie. Hello, Sophie, if you're watching. He's got twin daughters. I know Sophie. I don't know his other daughter very well. And he then decided he was going to make wine in China, and he went and he came up with this project. And interestingly, with this, I'll tell you a couple of details about this. It's called 15 because his family have made wine for 15 generations, back to the early 17th century. It's 1610. He can trace the direct winemaking lineage back. And so when he went to make wine in China, they made him show that lineage because it was really important that it was a sort of long family history. And then he once told me, I said, why do you not sign it? And he said, because signatures don't really count for very much in China because the nature of Chinese bureaucracy, but red official seals do. So it's sealed with a red official seal rather than with a signature. Whereas here we have the sort of contrast. For us, a handwritten label implies authenticity. So this wine, it's pretend handwritten Reserva, Carmenère, Chile, because that for us makes us feel as though it's authentic. In China, it's the red seal. There you go. The bits and pieces. I've got one more question. We've got this. Now then, who's this from? Now then, this is from Francis. I'm going to sort of try. Can you just say Francis who sent us in the question? I'm not even going to try your surname because it's a bit complicated. I really don't want to get it wrong. You're just sort of asking generally about temperatures for wine. And this is one of the reasons. Well, go to Sorrels because they've got really good information on their website, actually. So go to thewineshow.com and then click on the Sorrels link and go through and you'll be able to find it out. In general, you don't want it to go... Generally, wine storage, it hasn't to go below freezing. What we got down here, it doesn't want to go ever above 30. This got dangerously close because the corks will start popping out. Interestingly, the old advice used to be that bottles should be stored absolutely flat. Now, can you see there's a little air bubble? Now the advice is that you possibly want to have it slightly like that, with the cork slightly in contact with the air, and they're less liable to leak so much. It allows for a certain amount of breathing. So these racks sometimes aren't absolutely perfect. Generally, storage temperature 10 to 15. Keep it level, keep it out of sunlight, keep it out of vibration. Interestingly, don't put it next to big speakers. Try and keep it as level as possible. Go and get yourself a wine cooler. Best way. Thank you very much indeed. So go to visit our various merchants. They're all down there today. We've got a mix of different merchants. Get yourself some wine and go and look into getting yourself a nice wine cooler because it really matters. It's a bit like, when you buy a mattress, you spend a third of your life in bed. Get yourself a good mattress. I spend about a third of my life drinking wine. So I should go and have a decent cooler. See you again next week. Cheers.